Hey guys, so today I'm going to talk about the three centers of intelligence, also known as the gut, the heart, and the head triads. This is a central part of understanding the Enneagram, and it's also related to the three core emotions that all of the nine types are rooted in. So, the gut triad is related to the emotion of anger. The heart triad is related to the emotion of shame. And then the head triad is related to the emotion of fear. And I'm going to show you that briefly here, just so you can see that laid out. And this shows us which types are actually in those triads. So, our gut types is our 8, our 9, and our 1s. And then our heart is our 2, 3, and 4 types. And then the head triad is the 5, 6, and the 7. So this is a really great place to start in understanding the Enneagram based on the three centers of intelligence, the core emotion, and then we're going to explore how this manifests in all of these different types. How are they processing this core emotion? So to start, let's just talk about the core emotions in general. So these emotions is like the main underlying issue in the types that manifest, or they're somewhat trying to manage it in their own way. And it's kind of that underlying weakness in them that they're trying to navigate life. And that emotion is kind of hidden underneath a lot of their motivations, a lot of what they're seeking in life in a general sense. But just the three centers of intelligence, they really could be said as three types of like brains that we have innately. This is scientifically proven. This is not just an Enneagram fact, that we have a gut knowing. We have a gut form of intelligence where our gut is informing us. It's almost like an intuitive knowing about what's going on in a situation, your gut sensations. It's literally body sensations for our gut types. They just have a physical knowing of what to do, and it's like a form of information coming in, and they're making a decision very quickly by reacting according to their gut instinct. And then for our heart types, it's more of an emotional knowing, a emotional intelligence, being very in tune with their feelings, with the feelings of other people. Just emotional connection is a big thing for the heart types. So it's an intelligence around emotion in others, in themselves, just understanding the hearts of others, that being I would say it's feelings. This is also called the feeling center as well. So it's being guided by feelings, being guided by emotion, um, how a situation makes them feel, or noticing how other people feel, seeing interrelations, like how people are interconnected, and emotional states, and just that whole realm of information. The heart type people, who are of the 2, 3, and 4, they're mainly guided by this emotional awareness, you could almost call it. And yeah, so that's our heart triad. And then our head triad, they're guided by thoughts, they're guided by mental processes. It's an awareness of the logic of a situation. Does it make sense? Looking at things mentally, disconnected from the heart, not the gut instinct, but going into the mind and making sense of something, analyzing it. These are all things that we all have the capacity to do. And the dilemma of the Enneagram is that in our types, we're imbalanced. So you could say that these types lean towards a particular center of intelligence, which is a life imbalance. By majoring on just one when we're all three is like a central idea of the Enneagram. And also this points out the importance of moving towards health and becoming more present to life. The more present you are, the more you can not just react in the way you're used to, but you're able to get in touch with your gut if you're a heart person, and get in touch with your head as well and think through things logically. Yeah, so, but that's just a basis of the three centers, and then getting into the emotion and then how that manifests in all of the different types. So the emotion of anger is central for our type 8, our type 9, and our type 1. And how this anger manifests, it has a lot to do with justice, or recognizing injustices in the world, and getting angry about it, wanting to change reality in some way, or not being satisfied with the way reality is. And they're all reacting in their own way. So how the 8 reacts with anger, they externalize anger. They express it freely. They are protective. They go outside of themselves and kind of address reality, and are very direct in their expression of anger, to protect those that have been victimized in some way or harmed. It's a very natural thing for them to freely express their anger and not even notice that they're angry, but just they're the most comfortable with it, expressing it, doing something with it, pushing the world with it. They push against the world. And yeah, so a common theme I say around our anger types is boundaries. It's resistance. It's wanting independence and freedom to be in control of their own lives, of keeping the boundary. That's the best way. It's relative to all of them what that is, but it's having a sense of inner control and power, to not be powerless, and not liking powerlessness in someone else too, and wanting to address injustices as a general thing about them. So they are doing something with the anger in different ways. So the 8, like I said, they externalize it. The 9 is different. They are more repressing, pushing their anger down, going to sleep to it, kind of forgetting it, being out of touch with their anger. And they're wanting peace. They're wanting stability inside and outside. Again, that's that control still. It's there, like wanting nothing to come and disturb that inner peace or outer peace, which kind of becomes conflict avoidant in a sense. Yeah, so what else about them? Like they have an issue with like knowing that they matter, and them kind of going to sleep to the self. So there's also, related to justice, wanting to make sure that other people are heard, that they feel that they matter, that they know that they matter. So yeah, their thing is going to sleep to the self, keeping things peaceful, and also giving voice to others as well, kind of around truth and justice. And then our type 1s, they are internalizing anger, and it's becoming like a self-critical thing. Anger for them is like anger towards the self, anger towards imperfections, being perfectionistic, wanting to do the right thing, and wanting to correct wrongs that they see around them, wanting to fix things. And so it kind of becomes like a resentment form of anger that kind of spills out of them in a more subtle way. So again, similarly to the 9, like denying their anger, they cannot want to identify with the anger, but it's there because it's more of an internal criticism, an inner critic type of anger, which is like judgmental to the self, which then kind of translates into passively kind of being judgmental towards others, wanting to correct things, wanting to be perfect, seeing their imperfections, and then wanting to work on that too, and then seeing the imperfections around them too, as a result of having an anger that is like an inner critic sort of manifestation of it. So yeah, that's our anger types, 8, 9, and 1. And all of this is guttural, instinctual, reacting as things kind of push up against their territory, their freedom, justice, all of that kind of connected, following the instinct, not being as in touch with the emotions or the head, but just instinctual body sensations of what to do. And it's almost like an intuitive, like something's wrong, and them resisting the world, pushing against it, pushing against reality, not accepting reality. 9, not accepting reality by going to sleep to it, not wanting to face it, not wanting to have to deal with it, just want to keep things peaceful. The 1, reforming reality, making it what it should be, making it perfect as it should be. So still resisting reality. And then 8 is directly pushing on reality, externally, expressing anger toward it. Yeah, that powerful position of control over the self. And it can be potentially domineering or perceived to be from 8s, because how freely they express their dissatisfaction with reality in some way, in addressing it very directly. So yeah, that is our gut center types. Now onto the heart center. The heart center is also called the feeling center. This is the types that are in touch with their emotions. I'm personally in the heart center. I'm a type 2. And some core things about them, they're rooted in the emotion of shame. Shame about who they are, their identity. They're seeking identity, seeking a significant identity, wanting to be someone in other people's eyes that has value. This being an emotional center, it's related to emotions in relationships. So it's hard to split this from relationships. These types struggle with having a identity apart from some way of differentiating themselves in the eyes of others, and trying to, through their emotional intelligence, be of value to other people. The 2 does that. I'll get into the specifics, but just as a general sense, they want attention. They want a recognition from others, accolades. They want to be seen as successful in some way in their own spheres of how they manage this emotion. But the core thing is they're struggling with, who am I? And because of that, there's a sense of shame buried under all of their tactics to find an identity, to build an identity, which starts to cause them to be separate from the actual self, that they have a sense of shame about who they are, that leads to them building an identity and over-identifying with the identity that they are creating for themselves, and struggle to differentiate themselves, their real selves, from the identity that they've built. So this aspect I identify with the most in my journey of growth. In all types, to some degree, have the commonality of over-identifying with the personality and believing the personality is them, but all the more our identity types, who are in the heart, the emotions, the feeling triad, and the emotional struggle of shame, this seeking for what makes me valuable, what determines my worth, and having fluctuating self-esteem based on the reactions they're getting from people around them, and then trying to manage those connections keeping those connections strong, being in tune with others or being in tune with themselves, but nonetheless, it's all emotions. And seeing what society values and wanting to show up in the world as those things so that I have value, sort of common thing throughout this triad. But yeah, as you can tell, the emotion of shame is underneath it. And these types are somewhat running from that shame or burying the shame or over identifying with the shame, trying to manage this emotional struggle. So yeah, they're very in tune with emotions. Just as an intelligence, this is a gift. I want to say these intelligences are all gifts. It's just when we're out of balance is when it becomes a problem. But we're going all in on the feelings. How I feel determines the decision I make. Is it kind of a default and easy thing for a heart type to make decisions based on emotion? If the emotions are off, then we've got to fix that. That determines the decision. We're getting emotional intel, information, emotional knowings, and then making decisions on that. So yeah, the self-worth is connected to other people. This is something that can't be avoided, and then it starts to manifest differently in the types. And for type 2, they are the most in tune with other people's emotions. Type 2s go to sleep to their own emotions, suppress their own emotions, suppress their own needs, tune in. They use that emotional awareness to tune into others, to read other people's emotional states, to meet their needs. And they see what other people will value in how they can be supportive, like what is needed, what is valued, and then the two will become that. We'll start being a doer. We'll start filling those gaps for others and showing up as like the best coworker, the best friend, the best child, the most supportive person. Really knowing the other person very deeply and then connecting with them and kind of becoming what that other person would value. And then as a result of that person saying thank you and appreciating what that person is being for them, the two now feels valuable and has an identity based on being supportive, being there, being a helper, being a giver, being aware of others, being in tune with others. And it kind of causes the two to morph, and that becomes their identity. And this is how they get out of touch with their actual self. That shame connected to the actual self is like the thing that they don't want to deal with. So yeah, it becomes scary for the actual self to be engaged with, to be seen, because the more connected to the helpful one, when the two is not helpful, they feel shame or they feel like they're selfish, which would uncover that shame that is there innately underneath it all. So yeah, they have the weakness of becoming a doer and feeling that what they do is who they are. How they show up for others is who they are. How they've benefited the world is who they are. Our type 3, they do it in a different way. So in terms of emotion, they are unaware and push down their own emotion. They're the most disconnected from their emotion within the heart group, that they could almost not identify with being emotional type and emotional type, because they shift their focus into task and getting things done and being successful and achieving and showing up in the world in a way that is admirable. So it's more about, they build an image of success more directly, and they don't want the real self to be found out. Like they actually like forget themselves more than the other two types. They over identify with the successful image. And yeah, they're focused on an external presentation to the world. And they're very in tune with what is admired, what would be considered successful to others, and like altering and changing their image and editing their image and staying like current with what is considered successful, praiseworthy. They're called the performer in that way. They begin to over identify with the performance. And yeah, that core shame underneath is connected to the fear of failure, is how it manifests, like not wanting to be a failure. So they'll strive to be the best. Like the most opposite of a failure is to be the absolute best. If I'm at the top, if I am admired above everyone, then obviously I'm not a failure, you know? So the shame in them gets buried the most because they disconnect from their emotions the most. So yeah. And then our type 4 with the struggle of shame, and then also the emotional aspects of them, they are most in tune with their own emotions. So 2s are in tune with others. 3s are just disconnected, push their emotions down, like they forget their emotions. And 4s are so in tune with their emotions. The depths of their emotion is very like, it's their focus. They're moving at the pace of their emotions. And that sense of shame that is in these types, they over identify with it the most. That how they process the fact that they're so aware of their shame is they create an identity that is based on being unique, differentiating themselves from others. And it's like, I'm different. It's kind of how it manifests. So it's because they feel like something's missing. They really press into that and make it beautiful in a sense. They jump all the way into being unique and expressing their like authenticity. I think is a big thing about them. Staying true to what is authentic. Yeah, they can kind of lean into the melancholy, the sadness of the emotion, and that can kind of color how they show up in the world. And yeah, the shame is the most present, to say, for them. They build an image. Again, this is all image types. Who am I? So they're kind of exploring, trying on different images, trying on different masks almost, and trying them on for size of like, is this me? Is this me? I'm trying to find myself, trying to answer this, who am I? What is my identity? By exploring unique paths and then saying, okay, this one's me. This piece is me. And still, it becomes an image that's not the true self because the shame is underneath. And that's what's really needs to be dealt with in or healed, per se, that these types don't need to be ashamed of who they are aside from the images that they build. So there's a core like wanting connection, wanting affirmation, wanting appreciation, wanting acknowledgement in some way, validation of the self, and in not getting it, they're creating a self, which is not dealing with the core issue of shame. So yeah, that is a good overview of the emotion of the heart center. Now onto our head center. Our head center, again, is our 5, our 6, and our 7. They are dealing with the core emotion of fear. It could also be said as anxiety. It's just fear concerning like not feeling safe, not feeling secure, not knowing where things are going, and not feeling ready for life. It can manifest differently in these 3 types. But yeah, this state of fear has caused them to go up in their heads to kind of disconnect from the emotions and from the gut, and they're relying on their thoughts. They're relying on thinking, their brain, mental processes of analysis, analyzing through future possibilities, planning for the future, becoming knowledgeable, learning as much as they can, trying to see where things are going, trying to understand things, trying to just gather and research. Yeah, all as ways to kind of find guidance or wisdom. What should they do next? What is the right action? And not feeling certain about it, and then analyzing to answer that. This is what causes them to be imbalanced, to over rely on the head center, the thinking center, it's also called. So yeah, they can get just stuck in this place and not notice it. And it's just kind of normal to analyze, to plan, to detach, and to put their confidence in creating security through analysis. So a couple other aspects is like being competent is a commonality with them. So it's like gathering of knowledge, being competent, knowing the future, things like that. And then they all kind of get there in their own way. So the 5, they lean most into like time alone and making sense of stuff apart from the world, withdrawing from the world, researching, becoming more knowledgeable, feeling that they don't know how to show up in the world, or not feeling ready to show up in the world. So it's like, I just need to learn some more. I need to really specialize in something. I need to just gain more understanding so I can proceed. And so the present moment can feel overwhelming. So it's like, I need to retreat. This is too much. I don't feel safe. I'm going to create safety by pulling away. And then I'll rejoin when I've gathered what I think is sufficient in order to proceed, sort of thing. So it creates a withdrawing sort of strategy in them to kind of lessen their doubts and get more certainty. The 6, how they do it, the 6, they are struggling with all perspectives. They are basically, you could say, overwhelmed with all the different possibilities, and they don't trust themselves enough to make a decision. So it causes them to like look at every like worst case scenario, to analyze it from every single direction. They want to see all of it, and still not feeling confident to make a decision with all of the options. They then go outside of themselves, and they have some type of support system, a committee to help them to get guidance. So they're kind of rely on external systems, or it could be a family group or common group of people that they go to for rules to kind of navigate what should I do with all the options. There's a lot of like worst case scenario thinking with the type 6, wanting to be prepared. Prepared is probably the best word for them, wanting to be prepared. So it's preparing for negative outcomes, which is also worry. So it's worrying a lot and wanting to see everything, to forecast every possibility so that nothing catches them off guard. They're ready for the worst is kind of how they're getting security. And the more they see, the more they still need to go back to some type of external structure to help them make decisions, wanting guidance. That's how they're processing. This is fear. This is anxiety about the future, about security. And then our type 7, they are the positive processor of fear. And by that, I mean they are planning positive things in the future as a way to avoid the inner world of uncertainty, the inner world of anxiety and their fears, emotional pain. They're afraid of being trapped in that pain or in that indecision in all the things that they kind of don't want to experience. So they go outside, they plan for the future. They're planning positive things. They're wanting to look at the bright side of situations. They're reframing situations to stay upbeat, to stay out of their fears. And this is how they're managing actually being a fear type, is to avoid what they fear by just focusing on the good, focusing on other ways of looking at things. And it's more of a fear of like the abyss of what could happen if I do dive into what's going on the inside of me. If I really do look at all of that, like, will I be depressed? It's like, is there no end to it? So it's kind of the uncertainty of looking at it. Just, it kind of becomes avoidance. It's like, let's go do something else. Let's just make sure that, we've got amazing things to look forward to. And yeah, it becomes like, I've kind of saying similar things, but it's just looking at the bright side, being positive, lifting others up, lifting other people up out of emotional pain through let's go have fun, let's stay upbeat. Let's not like abide in all of that. So yeah, the core thing of fear in those types is something that needs to be looked at. And it's not, I'm saying this as a heart type, so I don't want to make this struggle sound like an easy solution or something, but just the nature of fear, it gets magnified, and being afraid of it. The things that I'll just say for myself that I've been afraid of, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger, because I was not wanting to see it, not wanting to deal with it. So, it's huge. Basically, what you're afraid of gets bigger and bigger. So, yeah, the journey and kind of dealing with that is seeing that it's not as bad, and that you can walk through it. You can see your fear and you can kind of walk through it, and that it won't become something that is all encompassing. I guess that you can navigate those waters. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying that that's kind of the core of that. So yeah, so our head types, they're in the analyzing and planning, preparing, researching, becoming experts, becoming knowledgeable. These types, being very logical and in their minds, they have the capacity of such amazing wisdom and understanding and being able to like articulate things for people. It's a very beautiful, beautiful gift. We all need to think through things logically like they do. Yeah, but this is just how these emotions are interweaved with these centers of intelligences. These are things that we absolutely have a gift in being able to recognize information, being able to make decisions from these places. It's just the emotional struggles underneath is what kind of throws it off. It's what makes us identify with one of the groups. And the more we can process these emotions and not run from these emotions and walk through this, and it unlocks us from this one-sidedness within ourselves, that we can become balanced. The more balanced we are in our emotional life, the more we can make balanced decisions. We can access all that we are created to be, all forms of intelligences. As a final statement, I like looking at these as brains. We have 3 brains, and yeah, let's learn to use all of our brains, all of our intelligences. So that is a core goal of the Enneagram. As we wake up to ourselves, as I talked about in a previous lesson, as we wake up to all that we are. And this is a big part of all that we are. And yeah, so I hope you got value out of this lesson. I'm calling it a lesson. Yeah, this is a part of who we are. So I hope that you got value out of it and that it was insightful. If there's any aspect of it that's still not clear to you, feel free to leave a comment below. Also, let me know, which of these do you feel you identify with? Which one is apparent to you? And in finding your type, this can be helpful in seeing which triad, which center of intelligence is like most available to you naturally. We can all wake up to all of them, but one of them is just where you're gifted. It's definitely a gift. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see y'all on the next one.